7 factors that can affect your car wreck case, starting with what I think is the most important factor, and that is your representation. Obviously, if you show up to a gunfight with a knife, you are not going to be prepared to handle that interaction. Equally true, if you show up to a car wreck case and you start negotiating with somebody that has a lot more experience, i.e. the insurance adjuster and the insurance company, than you with negotiating car wreck cases, you're not going to come out on the positive end of that negotiation. So the most important thing is to make sure you equalize the playing field before you start negotiating with an insurance company, and the only way to really do that is to have a lawyer in your corner doing that negotiation. So that would be, I think, the most important piece of information. Of course, it's also self-serving for me to say that, but 2 things can be true and accurate at the same time, right? So next, a factor that's important to understand about a car wreck case and could affect the outcome of the case is how much insurance is actually available for the case. Here's why that matters. There's very few people in the world, I would say less than 1%, that could really satisfy a money judgment against them that was over $250,000. I have this conversation with lots of clients day in and day out, lots of potential clients, and basically they're confused about, well, why am I limited? My injury is so bad and my medical bills are so high. Why am I only limited to recover $10,000 or $20,000? And the reason for that is that those are the limits of the insurance. And unless you're in the 0.5% of the American public that could satisfy a judgment of $250,000 without declaring bankruptcy, then that's all you're going to end up getting, unfortunately. Then it becomes a battle of how do we make all the medical bills reduced such that they all fit within those policy limits. And that's where law firms make their money. When the insurance proceeds are limited, we actually negotiate the medical bills down, sometimes thousands of times less than they actually are, just to get them to fit within the policy limits. So limits of insurance is a sincere and serious consideration for purposes of determining the outcome of your car wreck case. Statute of limitations is also an important thing because statutes of limitation controls when you can bring your case. And let me tell you how that matters in the real world. If you were to call an insurance company and you said to them, your insured caused a wreck that I was injured in, the insurance company is going to pull up the claim and look. The first thing they're going to look for is the date of they call it the date of the loss, because to them it's a potential loss of money. The date of loss is the date that they will have at the top page of everything they look at. And the reason they have it there is because they know that after the statute of limitations has run, your claim is worth $0. So everybody in this business operates by the statute of limitations. In Florida, that changed recently because Governor DeSantis, because he was placating a lobby group that he wants to get political contributions from, i.e. the insurance business, he reduced the statute of limitations in Florida from 4 years to 2 years. So now you have 2 years to file your car wreck case in Florida, and if you were to call on the 2-year anniversary, exactly the 2-year anniversary, that would be too late. Your case would be worth $0. You have to call within the statute of limitations, which means you have to call the day before the 2-year anniversary in Florida to get any money. We would contend that if you call anywhere close to the statute of limitations for the first time, or you have a lawyer show up for the first time close to the statute of limitations, you're probably going to have diminished case value because you waited so long. So then we go to another factor, which is the injury sustained. Your case is only worth, I tell clients, what the doctors say it's worth. The doctors have to diagnose the injury and come up with a treatment plan. From the diagnosis and the treatment plan, we can come up with what is that treatment plan going to cost for the remainder of your life. From that, we can get the future medical expenses. We'll have the past medical expenses from the treatment that you've already had. The future medical expenses are something that the doctor can basically testify to once they diagnose you and once they determine what works to help your symptoms. From those numbers, we can come up with a case value and tell you generally, depending on how much insurance coverage is available, remember, what your case is worth. The injuries sustained are a really important factor in all of that, obviously, because it drives what your treatment plan is going to be. The more serious your injury, the more serious your treatment plan. The less serious your injury, the less serious and involved your treatment plan will likely be. The other thing that needs to be considered, especially now that the law has changed in Florida, again, to benefit insurance companies, thanks to Governor DeSantis and his primary interest in helping companies and not people, the injury sustained is but one factor in that. Now we have to worry about this thing called comparative negligence. Now, Florida has always been a comparative negligence state as far as we're concerned. But this March, Governor DeSantis decided that he was going to change it. He and the Republican legislature, I shouldn't leave them out, decided that they were going to change it to a modified comparative negligence standard. And here's why that's significant. It used to be that if you were, for instance, paralyzed in a car wreck, and you were, let's say the jury found you to be 51% at fault. Well, you could still make a substantial recovery because there's 49% of the fault that was somebody else's fault, right? Now, under the new law, if you're 51% at fault for something, or 50 plus any percentage above 50 at fault, you get zero, even if somebody else is 49.9999% at fault. Okay? So the modified comparative fault is important not only because of that fact, but because of what it tells the insurance companies. So insurance companies now are being basically told that because we have modified comparative fault, even if they have a very small chance of arguing that you're at fault for your own injuries, guess what it does now? The playing field is a lot smaller for them to make that argument. It used to be they had to make an argument out of 100%. Now they only have to make an argument to 50%. So it's a lot easier to make an argument that you as the victim is at fault if all you have to prove is that they're 50% at fault, 50 point something percent at fault, right? Anything above 50%. It's a lot easier to do it. So it made it half as hard for them to make these arguments that they otherwise were making. So they're going to make these arguments 2 or 3 times more in cases because they have the ability to do that now. That's the chilling effect, if you will, from the passing of the modified comparative negligence. And then, of course, you've got to prove negligence, because proving negligence is something you have to do in the case no matter what, right? And proving negligence is proving, number one, that somebody had a duty to exercise reasonable care. That's the standard. They failed to exercise reasonable care, and that failure is the cause of your injury and damages in the case. Those are things you have to prove to a more likely than not standard. In civil court, which is where lawsuits go, it's more likely than not, which is just a little bit greater than 50%. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt like it is in a criminal case, because the punishments are not as severe in civil cases. It's just money. So if you have questions about negotiating, why you shouldn't negotiate your own car wreck case, I've given you 7 things that you should consider in doing that, and not doing that, rather. If you have questions about these 7 factors or any car wreck case, you can find us on the web at zarzaurlaw.com, or you can call us at 855-HIRE-JOE. Thank you.